It's Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. We're looking for you the next time we get together on a Sunday night. It's been reported that the Trump administration is considering overturning the Johnson Amendment. The Johnson Amendment came into being, this is Lyndon Johnson Amendment, after he went through an especially difficult election campaign. The Lyndon Johnson Amendment prohibits tax-exempt charitable groups from endorsing political candidates and from engaging other forms of political activism. It came about in the 1950s when the Southern Baptists went after LBJ in his home state of Texas, and he almost didn't get elected or reelected, I don't know which, and he wasn't happy. Now, LBJ was about as corrupt and immoral a man as we've ever seen in Congress, and he wound up president of these United States. This particular discussion leads to an observation by Alexis de Tocqueville, made in his book entitled Democracy in America, that came about as a result of his travels through America in the 1830s. Now, the trip was commissioned by the French government. You remember the French government? They changed the calendar from 7 days to 10 days. They cut everybody's head off. They did everything they could to get any vestige of God or the Bible or Christianity out of their system, and they went for an entirely humanistic society, and it almost destroyed them all. They ended up cutting off the head of the guy who was the head of the secular group. They wanted to know, in the 1830s, the political leaders did, how it was the democratic institutions of North America functioned, because they seemed to be doing so much better. Though de Tocqueville pretended some of the problems this young country would face because of slavery, in writing, quote, an institution that bred a people without energy, without ardor, without a spirit of enterprise, end of quote. He considered the tone of democracy in America to be generally optimistic. He clearly admired the American system, and one of the things that struck him most was the different role religion played in America compared to European nations. In contrast to Europe, where religion often stifled liberty, de Tocqueville was amazed to find that religion in America facilitated freedom. He wrote, quote, in France, I had almost always seen the spirit of religion and the spirit of freedom marching in opposite directions. But in America, I found they were intimately united and that they reigned in common over the same country. Religion in America takes no direct part in the government of society, but it must be regarded as the first of their political institutions, for if it does not impart a taste for freedom, it facilitates the use of it. Now, de Tocqueville believed this freedom from government, meaning the government is not regulating every aspect of our life, was beneficial to American society, and it's what differentiated America from other nations. He explained it by saying one of the happiest consequences of an absence of government, when a people is fortunate enough to be able to do without it, which is rare, is the development of individual strength that inevitably flows from it. Each man learns to think, to act for himself without counting on the support of an outside force, which, however vigilant one supposes it to be, can never answer all social needs. Man, thus accustomed to seek his well-being only through his own efforts, raises himself in his own opinion as he does in the opinion of others, his soul becoming larger and stronger at the same time. Why did religion play such a different role in America than it did in Europe? De Tocqueville attributed it to the American tradition of what we call the separation of church and state. A view he shared with many people he spoke with on the issue during his travels. He said, "I did not meet a single individual of the clergy or the laity who was not of the same opinion on this point." Now, one must wonder, would de Tocqueville hold a similar view in 21st century America? To put it plainly, does religion still foster a spirit of freedom? Secondly, would lifting the restrictions on the Johnson Amendment fundamentally change how government and religion coexist in the American system? What do you think? Should the Johnson Amendment restrictions be lifted? Or would both government and religious institutions be corrupted by the influence of each other? Now, if you're not familiar with the Johnson Amendment, one of the things it is commonly believed about it is that if you are incorporated by the government in a non-profit religious corporation, you can't speak on politics, you can't have politicians come in, you can't print literature that advocates for this person or that person. You have to stay out of politics altogether. That has been the contemporary wisdom in my lifetime, but it's not true. You're in a church, you can have a politician come and speak right from your pulpit, and he can have a political rally where he explains to the people what his politics are and what he's going to do that's different. You can have him do that right from your pulpit on a Sunday morning, and you will not lose your exempt status if you invite all of them. They don't all have to come, but you have to demonstrate that you have invited everybody to come on this day. This was the only one that showed up. Not my fault. You can explain to your congregation what you believe on certain issues, as long as you don't tell them how to vote, or as long as the system isn't set up so they have to follow the priest or the pastor. You can produce literature, and we've done that over the years. There's organizations that here lately, it hasn't happened very much, but they put out these half sheets, and it gave you the names of the people and what they believe, and on the back there were other facts and figures. You can do all of that stuff. But the politicians got us scared to death through ignorance, and for the most part, during the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, churches kind of bowed out. Would government and religious institutions be corrupted by the influence of one of the others? Remember, religion in America takes no direct part in the government of society, but it must be regarded as the first of their political institutions, for if it does not impart a taste for freedom, it certainly facilitates the use of it. John Miltmore is senior editor for something called Intellectual Takeout. It's not a website often read or gone to. It can get pretty academic. But we live in a society, unlike many societies, where if the biblical religion of Christianity were actively and enthusiastically pursued, our culture would be better. That's why we have so many people trying to shut the church down and get the church out of politics. I'm a citizen here. I vote. I also go to church. They're not mutually exclusive.